So now we've got the laptop set up with keyframes to animate the lid open and shut. I'm going to set up a cloner and a plane effector to control the animation of the lid. So let's make a cloner for a start. So MoGraph cloner, and let's drag and drop the laptop into the cloner. Now, as always, the default cloning is to make 3 copies spread vertically. I'm going to change this. I want an array of laptops sitting on the ground. So if I select my cloner, go to the Object tab, I'm going to change it to a grid array. And I want 3 in the x-axis. I'll just have 1 in the y-axis and 3 in the z. So now I've got a total of 9 clones. I also want them all sitting nice and close together. So I'm going to change the size of this array. I'll just click and drag those values, and I'll line up the X and the Z directions. Obviously the Y does nothing because I've only got one layer or one row of clones in the Y axis, so this value won't do anything at the moment. Okay, that looks pretty good. I might just tighten those up a little bit closer. So now those are all cloned. I'm going to create a plane effector, and the plane effector is going to drive the timing of the lid opening. What I want to do is I want to have the lids open sort of in a sequence as they open one at a time. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to select my cloner. Under the MoGraph menu, I'm going to go to Effectors and make a plane effector. Now the plane effector, its default parameter is to shift everything up 100 centimeters in the y-axis. So if I zoom out, there they all are there. Now I don't want to move them in the y-axis, so I'll turn that off. What I want to do is I want to control the timing of that lid open animation with the plane effector. So if I select my plane effector, I can go into its parameters, and I'm going to control the time offset. The animation of the lid opening is about 25 frames. I'm going to set the same value in here. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to create a field that is going to be able to change that timing over my clones. So in my plane effector, I'm going to go to the fall off and create a linear field. So here's my linear field. If I zoom out a little bit, I can see it, and if I drag it from side to side, my screen's going quite slow. Now I can see that linear field, as it passes through the clones, is changing the timing of the animation. Now there's a slight problem with this at the moment. When I drive my field off to one side, the lid isn't closing completely downwards. Now my screen is going very slow at the moment. There's quite a bit of geometry in the laptops, and it's making my interface draw quite slowly. What I'm going to do is add a quick tag onto my cloner to make my interface draw a little faster. This is a really useful tag when you've got a lot of objects in the scene. I'm going to select my cloner, and under the tags menu, I'm going to go to Cinema4D tags, and I'm going to create a display tag. So this overrides the drawing settings for this viewport. And what I'm going to do with this display tag, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to click on Use for the shading mode. I'm going to change it to Hidden Line Shading, and I'm going to put the style on Box. Now what this will do is draw a much simplified version of my geometry, and as you can see now, my interface is moving a lot faster. Okay, so back to my linear field. As I drag it through, it's controlling the animation. That's great. I might just shorten it up a little bit. But I'm not getting my lid closed completely. And if I scrub through the timeline, I'm still getting a bit of animation that's happening despite my linear field. What I need to do here is go back to my cloner, and under the Transform tab, I need to change the animation mode to Fixed. What that means is it's fixed to whatever the plane effector is going to do to it. So if it's on play, the animation plays. If it's on fixed, the animation will only play when the plane effector moves through it. So now if I go back to my linear field on my plane effector, if I click and drag, there's the lids closing. And if I scrub through my timeline, nothing else is happening. So that's all working now. The other thing is I want a little bit more variation in the way that my lids are opening and shutting. At the moment it's the 3 rows of laptops that are sort of opening one at a time. That's as my linear field passes directly through them on this x-axis. If I rotate my linear field around so it's going more diagonally through the laptops, we should get a different look. If I look down on top, here's my linear field sliding through the x-axis. If I grab my rotate tool and just rotate around that y-axis, now when I grab my move tool and move the linear field, this laptop at the back on the right, that's opening first, then the next sort of diagonal row as my linear field passes through it. So that's a lot more visually appealing. I'm going to set a couple of quick keyframes on this, and that will be my animation done. So I'm going to make sure I'm at frame 0. I'm going to select my linear field and just drag it to one side so that lid is completely shut, and set the keyframe button. I'm going to do this animation over 3 seconds, which is 75 frames. So let's go right to the end of the sequence, 75 frames, and drag the linear field all the way through so that all the lids are completely open. To about there. Now they're all open. And I'll set another keyframe. So if I scrub, I should have my linear field passing through the laptops and creating that animation sequence.